Okay. In previous session, we started discussing the determination of taxable income from salary, and we finished our discussion by talking about something overtime and the leave encashment allowance. So from that part, we will begin today's part because the salary is a big component of any individual income or average individual. Salary is a major component of his income. So if in today's session we will try to concentrate on the remaining portion to understand the determination of taxable income from salary. Then in second part of our session, we will try to concentrate on to see some income which are tax exempted and see the list of investment or expenditure by which you can have a opportunity to take the investment tax credit or tax rebate or investment tax allowance, whatever the name you say. And we will try to finish our session by talking about the corporate expenditure on corporate social responsibility, CSR. What is the motive of the business enterprises to spend a handsome amount of money every year in the name of CSR, and how to take the tax advantage by spending money in CSR activities. Okay. So for reference purpose, I try to stress that the document what you are just watching on my screen is a kind of guideline published by NBR every year to help the SSE to know how to calculate his income and how to prepare his income tax return. However, make it clear this document is not our reference, or this document is not comprehensive. Rather, our main source document is the income tax ordinance or income tax manual, part 1 and part 2, which are actually income tax ordinance. And I showed you the reference in BD laws, that this one. But for your convenience or for our convenience, we try to follow the text or textbook, which try to explain the income tax ordinance in a simple language. So for our course purpose, we recommended two texts to you. One is published by the ICAP study manual, which part? The tax planning and compliance part. Tax ordinance and the tax learning is too vast that ICAP in their CA program allocated 2 courses for taxes. And if you are in accounting department, you had to take 2 tax courses. So for our finance major, we try to give a brief idea of overall tax system in one course, because it is closely related to our curriculum, but not the major component, but very you would say that if the finance courses are core component, this is not our core component, but this is the component which we try to cover to support our core component learning. Okay, but what I try to stress here, make sure that you have this text also, and the business for the business taxation course. The text is Bangladesh Income Tax Theory and Practice. This is the text written by Nikhil, which is Nikhil, Masood, and Farid. So, why this text? In addition to this text, the answer is that this text is much more brief. However, this text is much more comprehensive. You will see much bigger explanation for a simple topic or single topic or the same topic, and you will see a very good number of practice problem in this text, which is not available in this text. So, but in most of the cases, you will find the contents are similar, but the difference is how brief the contents have been, how briefly the contents have been explained, or how comprehensively, or how much detail the author have taken or author have considered in explaining the same thing. Okay, so right now, for the remaining part of, not for the remaining part, I mean the income from salary, we will try to take the reference of this text. If you have this text, you can follow from that text. The chapter is income from salary, and in your course outline, you will see the reference chapter are simultaneously from both text. Okay, so if we are right now income from salary, we are right now in chapter 6 of this text or chapter 4 of the ICAB text. Okay, so we finished a previous class by telling about this. So let's talk about the component which I will take first. That is okay. We talked about house rent allowance in previous session, but if I give you an alternative situation, like it is like this. For example, instead of giving you the house rent allowance, your employer is giving you a ready-made house to live there, either free cost or at a concessional rate. First of all, let's take a case of uh, free cost or free of cost accommodation. Like if I like to write the term, that is okay. Rent-free accommodation. I mean, you are getting the rent-free accommodation from your employer. So in that case, how can you come up with the taxable income for that facility? That is the question. Okay. So the rule is that you have to take 25% of the basic salary or actual rental value. You have to look at these two. So let me explain. I think you are not confused with what it tries to say, 25% of the basic. Okay, we already have seen this kind of calculation, but let's talk about something about actual rental value. Okay. For example, the accommodation in which you are currently living or which have been given to you from your employer, if that accommodation was not given to you as free of cost, if that accommodation would be given to some tenant, he would pay, for example, 20,000 taka per month. In that case, if I multiply this number, I will get 240,000, right? So this 240,000 is known as actual rental value. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
you have to compare these two numbers. What is the actual rental value and what is the 25% of the basic salary? So which one will be considered as taxable income for this facility? The answer is that the lower between these two. The lower between these two. For example, if I like to take a numerical example from the text, that is in this way, the SSC gets 25,000 taka as basic salary per month. So in that case, what is his annual salary?
So 3 lakh.
300,000. In addition to that, he is also given a rent-free accommodation. Rent-free accommodation. And the rental value of this accommodation is, for example, 120,000. 120,000. I already have mentioned rental value. That means you have got the annual value. But if I would say that if this accommodation was not given to the employee and if it is given to someone outside, he would pay 10,000 taka monthly. In that case, what will you do? You just simply multiply the monthly rent by 12 and you get the annual rental value as 120,000. So now, or 120,000. Now compare between these two. Which one is lower?
25% of basic salary, sir.
Yeah, 25% of, 25% of basic salary. This is the total basic salary. And what is the 25% here?
5,000.
5,000. So this is the basic salary he is receiving. And 25% of basic salary is 75,000. Now compare these two numbers, 75,000 and 120,000. Which one is lower? The 75,000 is lower. In that case, for rent-free accommodation, for this SSC, 75,000 taka taxable income will be computed. Have you got it? Now,
Yes,
let me tell you a second case. For example, your employer is telling that you will be given an accommodation to live in, but that is not completely free of cost. Rather, I will give you at a concessional rate, or at a reduced rate. So what does it mean? For example, if the monthly rental value of that accommodation is 20,000, you will not need to pay 20,000. You can pay 15,000 per month. But what is the actual rent? Actual rent is 20,000. But your employer has given you the facility to pay 15,000. Would you stop your microphone? Would you mute your microphone from whom I am listening sound, noise?
কৃতিতপা
Okay. So you have been given concession for how much? 5,000 taka per month. That is not the case. The case is how you come up with the calculation. So let's continue with the previous case. In previous case, the employer was giving the employee 25,000 basic salary per month. That means annually 300,000. And the similar rule of 25% of the basic salary is still applicable. So 25% of 300,000, how much?
75,000.
75,000. And you need to take the actual rental value here. What is the actual rental value here? 20,000 multiplied by 12. So 20,000 multiplied by 12, how much?
240,000
240,000. So you need to take the number here, 240,000. Between these two, which one is lower?
75,000
75,000 is lower. So you need to take the lower value first. I mean, still now the rule is similar to the previous case. So what is the changes here? Let's try to concentrate now. You need to check right now from this amount, you need to subtract that amount what you are paying to the employer as a rent for the accommodation, which is a concessional rate, in fact. So for our simple calculation, let's talk about it is not 15,000. It's for example, it is 5,000. You are paying 5,000 every month, and you are getting concession of 15,000. So annually, how much you are paying?
60,000
60,000. The amount of rent you are paying in cash, that will be subtracted. In that case, how much is taxable?
15,000
Have you got it how I have come up with this number? So you have got two cases. Here, there are two cases. One is free of cost. Another one is at concessional rate. Okay, so let's move. Then we'll talk about, I don't see that item here. Okay, let me write the item name for you. Entertainment allowance. So what is that? If you visit someone's office for your purpose, you will see the person is giving you some tea, some biscuit, some cake for entertaining you. So in some offices, officers are given a fixed amount per month for bearing this kind of entertainment expenses. Entertainment, officers entertain their visitors, their customers, these people. So if that amount is given in cash, for example, 500 taka every month, how much in a year? 6,000. This whole 6,000 will be considered as taxable income for entertainment allowance. Note that it is a cash payment. It is a cash payment to you. If it is such that, it is given to you for in a in-kind form. For example, your employer does not, your employer gives you entertainment allowance. In addition to that, your employer also provides some tea, beverages to your audience or to your customers. In that case, this in-kind will not be counted as entertainment allowance for tax purpose. Am I clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think you have got it. Okay. Next, we will talk about, I think we already have talked about the conveyance allowance in previous session. But in addition to the discussion what we made regarding the conveyance allowance in previous session, let's talk about some additional cases related to conveyance allowance. So what are those discussion? Let's talk about. For example, instead of giving you the conveyance allowance every month to your salary, your employer provides conveyance facility. Conveyance facility. For example, your employer gives you some, not some, gives you a car and your employer has said that this car can be used by you both for personal and for official purpose. Both personal and the official purpose. In that case, it is a situation. Let's take another case, fully personal. Either partly personal or fully for personal purpose, I'm giving you a car to use. In that case, the rule is that how can you convert this facility into taxable income? The answer is that you need to take 5% of basic salary or 60,000 taka, which one is higher as a taxable income for the conveyance facility. Let's take a quantitative example. Your monthly salary is 20,000 and you are provided with a conveyance facility, both for, let's take this case, personal and official use. In that case, 20,000 taka is your monthly basic. Take it to annual. That means 240,000 taka is annual. 20%, 5% of this basic is how much? 5% of this is 12,000 or 60,000. Between these two numbers, which one I should take?
60,000.
60,000.
I should take the higher one, the 60,000, which will be considered as taxable income for what? Conveyance facility. Okay. If it is such that employer has given you a car and it has been mentioned that it is fully for official purpose. In that case, no taxable income for conveyance facility will be considered. Have you got it? So you need to be very precise what purpose employer mentioned in your employment contract. The reality is that in most of the cases, employer provides conveyance facility for official purpose fully, but it is found that for tax purpose, SSC is very concentrated. SSC is concentrating on this purpose that it has been given to me for fully official purpose, but in reality, it is found that he is very likely to use the conveyance facility both for personal and for official purpose. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's talk about another case. For example, you are provided with both conveyance facility and conveyance allowance. You are provided with both conveyance facility and conveyance allowance both. So in that case, what will happen? How can you deal with that situation? So I think you are already very clear with this one. that what will happen if the conveyance facility is given only. So let's take this number here first, 60,000 for conveyance facility. But when, in addition to the conveyance facility, additional conveyance allowance will be given to you, that additional conveyance allowance, let's take an example that number is 6,000 annually or 500 per month. In that case, that allowance amount will also be added to the taxable income for conveyance facility, and the total number will be total amount will be considered as taxable income for conveyance facility and conveyance allowance. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Sir,
So,
I have a question.
yeah,
Sir, who bears the maintenance cost?
in that case, the maintenance cost is irrelevant for tax purpose. Whoever is bearing the cost.
All right, sir. But sir, still in general, who bears the cost?
Usually the employer, when employer has given the conveyance facility, usually it is the maintenance facility is actually borne by the employer himself.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. If in another case, if it is such that employer take some general case which are kind of let's take two options, like we already have talked about arrear salary in previous class. Alternatively, we can also recognize that amount as outstanding salary. But what is the just opposite of this? If you take advance salary, in that case, the income year in which you are taking the advance salary, following that income year, when the assessment year will come, in that assessment year, you have to show that advance salary as your taxable income. And in the following period, when this advance salary will actually be due salary, in that time, you should not show that portion of salary which you took as advance previously. It is very intuitive. As you already have shown that income from salary when you have received, you don't need to show it again when it will become due later. Okay? And let's take another item, that is pension. If employer gives you pension facility, that pension facility or the income or receipt from the pension will be tax exempted. It can be given to you in a single time payment, or it can be given to you in multiple time, or kind of like annuity type payment. In addition to that, if any kind of annuity is given to you, other than pension facility, that annuity is a taxable income. Whenever you receive that annuity, that will be your taxable income. And like the pension facility or the this kind of facility, another facility is known as, which is more common in private companies, that is gratuity. It is a kind of one-time payment to the employee given by the employer as a recognition for the services rendered by his or her employee. So according to 6th schedule of income tax ordinance, exactly gratuity up to 2.5 crore taka is tax exempted. So I have mentioned a reference, 6th schedule of income tax ordinance, part A. These schedules are part of income tax ordinance. I showed you in previous session, so far I can recall to you. You see the schedule here?
Yes, sir.
So there are 6 schedule. It starts from the first schedule. Then you will see the 6th. How many schedule? 6 schedules. So let me show you for the gratuity. Okay. So there are some conditions for which you will get the tax exemption for gratuity. Let me find out this for you. Okay, I have got it. Right now, okay. In 6th schedule, it is mentioned that any income up to taka 2 crore 50 lakh, that means 2.5 crore, received by an associate as gratuity from the government or an approved gratuity fund, this amount will be tax exempted. Okay. However, if I give you the question like this, that the employee has received 2.7 crore taka as gratuity from his employer, in that case, how much will be taxable? How much will be taxable if the employer gives 2.75 crore taka to the employee as gratuity? And you just have learned the rule that how much will be taxable. In that case, what will be the taxable and how much out of 2.7 crore?
So 20,000.
20,000. Okay, fine. Now let's talk about which is important and you need to spend your concentration. That is how you will show your receipt from the Provident Fund. Okay. So you'll find a good description or good explanation of the rules in your text. So let me summarize the rules here. Provident funds are generally classified for tax purpose in three types. First of all, that is statutory or government provident fund. Second one, I take separate color. It is recognized provident fund, and I take another one for unrecognized provident fund. From the name statutory government provident fund, I think I should not explain what is provident fund, or for what purpose provident fund is formed, what kind of facility provident fund gives to the beneficiary employees. I think you know these concepts very well. Are the purpose of forming provident fund? It is a kind of giving benefit to the employees after the retirement as a recognition for his or her services during the employment period. Okay, so statutory government provident fund, from the name it implies that it is for the government employees. It's not for the non-government employees, it is for the government employees. So this provident fund, statutory and government provident fund, can be classified further into two categories. One is general, another one is contributory. So let's try to understand what do we mean by this sub-classification. In general provident fund, employer does not pay anything or does not contribute any amount in general provident fund. So if employer does not contribute anything, who does contribute in this provident fund?
Employees.
Only employees contribute in this provident fund. So you may ask, for what kind of employees this kind of provident fund is applicable? Where only employees are contributing, but employer is not contributing. The answer is, it is applicable for those employees who have access to the pension fund benefit or pension facility. So if it is such that the employee has access to pension fund facility, or the employee will get pension after his retirement, you can easily understand that, or you can commonly understand that if he has subscription to the provident fund, his provident fund is a kind of general provident fund, given that that person is a government employee. And in his provident fund, government does not contribute anything, because government gives him facility in alternative way, that is the pension fund. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
In most of the government jobs in our country, pension fund facility is available. That's why if you see the employees have provident fund, you need to understand that that provident fund is a kind of, what kind of provident fund? What
General
kind of?
provident fund.
General provident fund. So in my case, as we have the status of government employees, our salary statement also shows that we have contribution to the, you see, it is my salary statement of my 2019-20 assessment year, 2018-19 as an income year. Okay. So what does it mention? PF subscription. It is my portion. That means as I'm a government employee, the provident fund subscription, what has been made from my end, this is only my contribution. Have you got it? This amount is my contribution. This amount is not contribution from the government. So let's return back to our discussion. Okay. Have you seen the new screen which I shared? I have not given the new share. Have you seen any salary statement?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay,
Not
okay,
before.
okay. Let me open it first, then I'm sharing it with you. Okay, now you are seeing my salary statement of a particular income year. And what I tried to tell you that in my salary statement, I had subscription of approximately 20,000 taka in a particular income year in a provident fund. So if I ask you what kind of provident fund this is in which I'm making this contribution, if my status is a government employee,
It's a general provident fund.
it is a general provident fund. Okay. Okay. So in another provident fund, that is contributory provident fund, but it is also for government employees. So if you have understood the understanding of general provident fund, you need to understand what I will say about the contributory provident fund, as the name implies that the employer contributes to this fund also in addition to the employee's contribution to provident fund. Have you got it?
Yes,
In
sir.
contributory provident fund, both government and the employees contribute. Okay. Then let's proceed for recognized provident fund. We'll talk about tax implication for this after understanding this provident fund separately. Recognized provident fund, it is recognized provident fund and unrecognized provident fund. So before coming to the discussion of recognized provident fund and unrecognized provident fund, you need to understand that the general provident fund and the contributory provident fund are run by some acts and rules of provident fund, which you will find in your text. That is kind of this government provident fund in general, run by 1925 Provident Fund Act, and general provident fund. For general provident fund, additional rules are applicable from the General Provident Fund Rules 1979, and for contributory provident fund, Contributory Provident Fund Rules 1979 is applicable. These are some rules which are applicable for operating this provident fund. Okay. So note that the fund in provident fund is invested in securities, some income generating assets, but it is usually guided that the fund of provident fund cannot be invested in risky securities or risky assets. So usually you can't expect that a provident fund has made investment in a startup company. Rather, it is very likely that provident fund has made investment in government securities or saving certificate or municipal securities, this kind of, or treasury bond, this kind of instrument. Okay. So recognized provident fund is and unrecognized provident fund, both are applicable for non-government employees. Both are applicable for non-government employees. Got it? So in recognized provident fund, how this term recognized has come? The answer is that if you can recall the functions of NBR we discussed in session before the previous session. NBR has one function to approve the provident fund. If a provident fund is approved by the NBR for tax purpose, in that case, that fund is known as recognized provident fund. However, if the provident fund is not approved by the NBR, that provident fund is known as
Unrecognized.
unrecognized provident fund. So let's talk about what is the tax treatment of these different types of provident fund. It is kind of tax, how income tax ordinance rules apply for this income from provident fund or the accumulated balance from provident fund. Okay. Where is the pen? You're seeing the pen tool here. Text, draw.
No sir, pen tool তো
No,
দেখা
sir.
যাচ্ছে
Only the
না।
cursor.
Cursor দেখা যাচ্ছে।
Yeah. I don't see the pen tool here. Text, draw, stump, spotlight, eraser. Okay, I need to begin it from the beginning. Okay, now it is here. Okay, the rule is that in general provident fund, in which the employer does not contribute, there is no question to include the employer's contribution here. That means for general provident fund, no amount is there to be included in taxable income because there is no employer's contribution. If I ask you the amount you are contributing, is it your income? The amount,
Yes, sir, it is.
the amount which you are contributing to the provident fund, I mean from the perspective of provident fund, that means you have earned the income in the name of salary. But when you are contributing something to the provident fund, that means your facility you are contributing. Is it your income?
No, sir.
It is not
No,
your
sir.
income. But if employer gives you something in the name of contribution, in that case, that is your part of income.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this case, general provident fund, employer's contribution is not coming. The option is not relevant here. But in case of contributory provident fund, in your taxable income, one item should be added, that is employer's contribution to the provident fund. every year you are getting a contribution from your employer to your provident fund, and that amount of contribution will be included. Which one? Employer's contribution. In addition to that, if you receive interest on the accumulated balance of the provident fund, that will also be included. That will also be included in your taxable income.
Income. Yes, sir.
So let me show you from the salary statement.
তার কন্ট্রিবিউটরি প্রভিডেন্ট ফান্ডটা কি স্যার ফুললি ট্যাক্সেবল, যেটা এমপ্লয়ার্স কন্ট্রিবিউশন?
Yeah. On this one. You see this item?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll talk about right now we are in a statutory provident fund, but I'm just showing you that how contribution to provident fund by the employer is included in the income tax return statement for salary. Okay, employer's contribution. In case of interest, there is a rule. I will tell about it after finishing the discussion for provident fund, that because there is a exemption facility for interest payment. But the thing is that in case of okay, let me return to the whiteboard. Okay. In case of recognized provident fund, you know it very well. There is no contribution of employee which will be added to the income, because employee's contribution cannot be considered as income. So which is income? Income is
Employer's contribution.
contribution.
employer's contribution. So in employer's contribution will be considered as income for recognized provident fund every year, every income year. Okay, every income year when you are receiving income from your contribution from your employer in your provident fund, that amount will be included as your income from in your income from salary in the name of contribution by your employer in recognized provident fund. What I just have showed to you in the schedule 24A. But note that I did a mistake here. That is, in case of contributory provident fund, the government has given exemption of full contribution to the contributory provident fund not to include as taxable income. Have you got it? In case of contributory provident fund, which is in fact government provident fund, the government contribution to contributory provident fund will not be included in taxable income. One of you just asked me the question. I I said yes, but the answer is no. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So right now we are concentrating on only one component, that is in which case the contribution will be considered as taxable income. Okay.
When it comes from employers.
Yeah. So we just have talked about the recognized provident fund and also the contributory provident fund. And in case of unrecognized provident fund, note that employer's contribution will not be included when it is paid in your taxable income. So your question is, in that case, when it will be considered? So I'm giving you answer. So the discussion what we just have made is based on the annual contribution made by the employer in provident fund. In a statutory provident fund, we have seen that employer's contribution is tax exempted or should not be included. And in recognized provident fund, employer's contribution should be included when it is paid. And in case of unrecognized provident fund, employer's contribution to recognized provident fund should not be included when it is paid. So let's move to the second part of our discussion. After your job period, you will have a accumulated balance in your provident fund, is it? After your finishing of job tenure, when you are in a retirement or when you are leaving your job, you will have an accumulated balance in your provident fund. Note that the contribution in you by your employer is not given to you in cash. When it is you see that employer is making contribution, that contribution directly transferred to the provident fund. So what I try to make it clear right now, that after transferring of fund every year, at the end of your job period or at the end of your job term, you will have an accumulated balance in your provident fund. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
You will have an accumulated balance.
Yes, sir.
So in case of a statutory and government provident fund, it is said that when you receive accumulated balance from the provident fund, that has been made tax exempted. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
In case of recognized provident fund, you should not include accumulated balance in your taxable income. Accumulated balance of what? Accumulated balance of provident fund. In case of unrecognized provident fund, you need to include accumulated balance when you will receive as a taxable income. Have you got the difference of treating the same accumulated balance with respect to three types of provident fund?
Sir, can you please repeat this for me once more?
In case of a statutory provident fund, accumulated balance will be tax exempted. In case of recognized provident fund, accumulated balance will be tax exempted. It is very intuitive. It is very intuitive in a sense that you already have made payment of taxes every year based on the employer's contribution every year. So when you have the accumulated balance, if you again charge tax on this, it will have double taxation.
Yes, sir.
That's why it is not included in your taxable income when you receive the accumulated balance. And you know very well, in case of government provident fund, it is the government facility provided by the government for not taxing the either accumulated balance or the contribution by the employer, which is specifically for contributory provident fund. And now let's come to the unrecognized provident fund. It is also intuitive. As you have not given tax on annual contribution made by your employer, so you need to pay tax now when the accumulated balance is due for receiving. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then let's come to the another point. That is that is related to the interest, because you receive interest on the provident fund. Provident fund balance grows with the interest accumulating every year. Okay. Now, interest. In case of a statutory and government provident fund, interest is tax exempted. In recognized provident fund, interest is tax exempted by a certain amount. I'll show you how to calculate that certain amount. And in case of unrecognized provident fund, full interest and full interest is tax exempted. Let me show you which portion. Interest is tax exempted. There is no tax exemption for the interest on the unrecognized provident fund. Let me make a further correction here. I told about accumulated balance for unrecognized provident fund, right? That that amount should be included as taxable income. Note that the contribution made by the employee is not your income. I'm repeating it. In that case, which accumulated balance is your income in real sense?
My employer's contribution.
Balance has two parts. One part has been contributed or has grown by your employer's contribution, and another part has grown by your own contribution. The taxable portion is the employer's portion. That means the contribution made by the employer. Okay. So let's talk about interest payment. In case of recognized provident fund, a certain portion of interest is tax exempted. So let me show you an illustration. For example, Mr. X is paid 5,000 as basic salary per month. if it is the case, what is his annual salary or
60,000.
total salary yearly? 60,000, right? Okay. Now it is said that this person has received interest of 7,200 taka from a recognized provident fund at the rate of 18%. Have you got it? The question.
Yes, sir.
Now we like to know that out of this 7,200 income, how much of the income will be tax exempted, how much will not be? The answer is, what is the rule? You have to take two numbers. 1/3 of basic salary. Note that it is not balance sheet. When you will see the recording, if you don't concentrate right now, you may mistakenly understand that it is 1/3 of balance sheet. It is not that. 1/3 of basic salary. Then, or interest calculated at the rate of 14.5%, which one is lower? That amount will be tax exempted. So let me show you the application. First of all, tell me, what is the 1/3 of basic salary for this person?
So 20,000.
20,000. Okay. Of which 1/3 of this one. And this interest amount is calculated based on percentage. What percentage? 18%. And now, if I divide this 7,200 by 0.18, can I get the accumulated balance based on which 18% was calculated?
Yes, sir.
So can you please tell me the number? What is that amount?
40,000.
40,000. Now, would you tell me if I apply 14.5% on this amount, what will be the amount?
5,800.
5,800. Now, if you compare this number and this number, it is equal to how much? 5,800. Now this number, I mean this number and this number, which one is lower?
5,800.
5,800.
This amount is to be tax exempted. This amount is to be tax exempted. Now what is taxable now?
1,400.
That is the way how can you calculate the tax exempted amount for interest on recognized provident fund. Now, if you ask me whether there is any tax exemption facility for interest on unrecognized provident fund, the answer is no. So when you are a private employee, you need to check whether the provident fund which is maintained by your employer is a recognized provident fund. If it is a recognized provident fund, your tax liability will be lower. Otherwise, your tax liability will be same, lower, or higher. I have asked a question.
So higher hobe, sir.
Okay. So this is how you can find out the way to avoid taxes. Okay. If you fail to find out, or if you don't check the status of the provident fund of your employer, in that case, you may end up paying higher taxes. Okay. So let me continue for the remaining portion of income from salaries.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, যদি মানে আমাদের রিকগনাইজড প্রভিডেন্ট ফান্ড বেনিফিশিয়াল হয় এমপ্লয়িজদের জন্য, তাহলে এমপ্লয়াররা কেন সবগুলো ফান্ডকে রিকগনাইজড করে নিবে না?
For getting recognition of provident fund from the NVR, employer needs to comply with a number of conditions, number of restrictions. If employer feels that it is costly for me to comply with those conditions, I like to let my provident fund as unrecognized, rather taking approval from the NBR. But in most of the cases, you'll find that provident funds are mostly recognized.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Now, if you receive the cash allowance for tiffin or lunch, full amount will be taxable. Does it hurt you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So NVR is sometimes cruel, or the tax authority is sometimes cruel, you may feel, but the reality is such that. But if somehow you can manage your employer that, please don't give me cash allowance for lunch, rather you give me lunch in kind. You know the difference between cash and in kind?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In that case, NVR has no opportunity to charge tax on you, because NVR has said that such kind of free lunch facility is tax exempted. Okay. But there's a common word in finance, that is, there is no free lunch in the world. So what does that mean? That term mean? It means that arbitrage is not cost free. That means making a return from something, you need to spend some cost, or you need to spend some expenditure, or you need to make some investment. You can't find out anything as a free lunch. But free lunch is a common term because it is attractive to the employees because they get it from the employer. It's nothing. The thing is that anything free is always attractive. Okay. In Bangladesh Bank, if you have the opportunity to work there, they are provided a cash allowance approximately, I can't recall the figure right now, 400 or 500 every day as a lunch, for lunch allowance or tiffin allowance. So you can feel that this is a handsome amount, and Bangladesh Bank employees, both top and medium level management, they feel it very worthwhile to work there, because there is a tiffin allowance or free lunch allowance is there. Okay. So in probably 1 year ago, the new governor decided to reduce or stop that facility. So there was a day-long or 3-day demonstration there why government is taking such a not government, governor is taking such a decision to stop the allowance for lunch. Okay. So
Okay, sir.
Let's talk about interesting point, that is, if you are fortunate enough, you may get free or concessional passage for traveling home and abroad from your employer. That means you have performed well, or your parent company is in Switzerland. So your employer has given you the facility that in every 2 years, you will have the opportunity to visit Switzerland. It is one of the facility I will provide you as employment contract, in employment contract. Okay. It is always attractive. So NVR knows it very well that employees receive this kind of facilities from their employer. So how can that facility is recognized for tax purposes? The answer is that if it is mentioned clearly in employment contract that this facility will be provided to the employee, particular employee, in that case, employee will get tax exemption to the actual expenditure amount for this facility. Let me give an example. For example, Mr. Mehta works for Unilever. So he has a he has got a facility from his employer that he will have the chance to visit UK every year with his family members, and it is mentioned in his employment contract, and he has been given, for example, 300,000 cash. In addition, all cost for traveling, roaming in UK, all expenses are borne by the employer. But in employment contract, there was no mentioning that Mr. Mehta will be given 300,000 taka cash for this kind of traveling. Have you got it? In that
Yes,
case,
sir.
this 300,000 taka will be totally taxable. Okay. If it is such that it is mentioned that Mr. Mehta will be given 300,000 taka every year for this purpose, concessional passage or free passage, or for traveling abroad or home every year. In that case, if it is found that, for example, Mr. Mehta has taken some discount offer from the travel companies, and out of the 300 taka amount given by employer to him, he has spent 250,000 taka. He didn't spend 50,000 taka. And BR says that he has to pay taxes on this 50,000 taka, what he has saved from the amount given by his employer. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
What would you
Yes, sir.
suggest? What would you suggest to Mr. Mehta not to pay taxes from his allowance
he
given
should-
by the employer?
So
He
he should spend the full amount, sir.
He should
He
spend
should
the full
pay
amount.
all amount. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Okay. The problem is with the cash. The problem is with the
Cash.
cash. If it is such that instead of saving 50,000 taka, he has to spend this 50,000 taka for buying something related to his travel, not for other purpose, related to his travel, he could avoid the tax payment. Okay. Now, alternatively, if it is not mentioned in the employment contract, total amount will be taxable. Have you got it? Now, the interesting case is you work for Biman Bangladesh, and in employment agreement, mentioned or not mentioned, you get facility to move from here to there, from there to here by using the Biman Bangladesh flight. This kind of facilities will not be considered as taxable income. Given that you work for a company which provides transport facility either by air or roadway, or you work for Kiari Transport, which provide ship transport facility from Teknaf to Saint Martin, and you are employee of Kiari or Green Line, you will not have to bear any tax burden. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is our discussion for income from salary part. What I like to recommend you to cover from the text of Nikhil Chandra Shil. But in the remaining portion of our today's class, we will talk about something very important to know, which income are not taxable in general. Okay. I already have mentioned 2 or 3 items to you in previous session, like remittance, like income from freelancing services. Okay. So if you like to note down that from where I will or you will cover the contents, it is of the page 127 of the Nikhil text, or the Bangladesh Income Tax Theory and Practice textbook. I will first of all we'll try to cover something like tax exempted income. Tax exempted income. I'm just giving you some brief particulars of some specific points so that you will have an idea that how can you understand the remaining point. Okay. If there is a trust, you probably have heard about the trust which is formed by a person or people for beneficiary purpose. And who are the beneficiaries can be some other people. It can be for family purpose, it can be for religious purpose, it can be for educational purpose, whatever it is. But for tax purposes, it is said that if a trust has been set up for religious purpose or educational purpose, and that trust has some house property, note the purpose of the trust, either religious or educational. That trust has some house property in ownership, the income from house property will be tax exempted. Let me give you another example. That is, you are very familiar that religious institutions like masjid or madrasa or mandir or girja, this kind of institution receive good amount of voluntary contribution from their people or from their followers. So those income are tax exempted for these institutions. Voluntary contribution by the people. And if I ask you, is there anyone in my class who have investment in security market?
No, sir.
Not a single one. So
We are hardly 18.
you?
So we are hardly 18, sir. I don't even have my ID card.
You have underestimated your age.
স্যার
Am I
এনআইডি
true?
কার্ড এখনো পাইনি স্যার।
Okay, but I think you are not 18. I mean, your age.
Not now, sir.
Huh.
No, sir, not now. Now I'm 20, sir.
You are on an average, your age should be 20 or 20 plus.
Yes, sir, now
Right.
I'm 20, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But what I'm telling you that right now, do you have any investment in security market? That means you play what you learn.
So can we invest in security markets without a BO account?
This is the ticket to enter into the stadium.
And so can we open a BO account without an ID card?
No.
There's the barrier, sir.
Okay, but I think some alternatives can work also. If you have the birth certificate, you can. Do you have the bank account?
জি
So
স্যার ব্যাংক
long
অ্যাকাউন্ট
all the
আছে।
bank accounts are student accounts, sir. Like
Yeah.
joint accounts with my father or mother.
Oh, but I think if you have a bank account, you can also have a BO account. You can talk to the security house that whether my birth certificate will work as evidence alternative to NID, because I have been waiting for NID for few years, but I'm crazy to make investment in security market.
Yes, sir, I will, inshallah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so let me give you some motivations why you should go to the security market. As it is not finance class, that's why I'm not giving so many motivations related to finance. But in general, I like to tell you that it is not worthwhile to learn something on which you actually don't act. Okay, so when you act on something and you also learn something, in that case you will have a hands-on experience. Okay, so in my case, I started making investment from 2010. I started my undergraduation in 2009, and I started making investment in security market from 2010. So 2010, most probably 2010 August or September. I think as you are in second year first semester right now, or sorry, second year second semester.
Yes, sir.
So I think when I was in your time or in your age, I exactly began making investment in securities market. Okay, so from that time I started playing. Playing means because I need to check what I'm learning, or I need to check whether I can apply, whether it works actually. Okay, otherwise you will not get any flavor or any pleasure in your finance class. Okay, you will find your finance learning very boring because all of these are quantitative or either highly qualitative or highly quantitative or very technical. But when, as long as you have started playing with these concepts or with this learning, you will get some insights and you will get it worthwhile to study finance. Okay, so this is one of the general motivations. But second motivation, what I like to tell you, that is, if you receive, I think you are already familiar with the dividend, which is given by the company to the shareholders from their profit or from their cash balance. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so up to year before previous year, dividend income of 25,000 taka was tax exempted. Right now, if you have, for example, you have received income of 75,000 taka dividend in a particular assessment year, particular income year, in that case, out of 75,000 taka, you will get 50,000 taka as tax exempted from your dividend income. Is it motivating to make investment in share market and earn dividend and buy the stock which pays a hefty amount of dividend?
Yes, it is, sir.
Yes, sir.
And if you ask me which are the which companies are good candidate for paying dividend, the answer is the MNCs. So if you look at the dividend percentage of those companies, you will see the dividend percentage are, I think you have not seen this kind of percentage in your finance practice problems. That
No, sir.
dividend is 800%, 1000%, 600%. The answer is yes, it is possible. How it is possible? It is percentage of
Face value.
face value, or you can say par value. As all shares are at par value 10 taka, so 1000 percentage of 1000 percentage dividend means how much? 100 taka
100
dividend.
taka.
100 taka dividend. Okay. So income from mutual or unit fund. Up to 25,000 taka income from mutual fund is also tax exempted. Then gratuity, I already have mentioned, up to how much is tax exempted?
50,000.
50,000. Gratuity, I mentioned in our discussion
up to
for income from
2.5
salary, 2.5 crore taka.
Yes, sir. 2.5 crore.
Yeah. Then income from zero coupon bond. Right now, I don't know whether we have zero coupon bond outstanding right now. We had a zero coupon bond, ACI zero coupon bond. If you receive income from zero coupon bond, if I ask you what kind of income is available from zero coupon bond, coupon income or capital gain?
It's a capital gain.
Capital gain, sir.
Okay, so that is totally tax exempted. Okay, I think many of you have income from freelancing services.
Yes, sir.
So you need to know that
It is taxable.
it is tax exempted, given that you submit income tax return. Have you got the condition?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
what kind of business are right now tax exempted? Let me tell you something. Software development, software application customization, then digital data analytics, then geographic information services, IT support, software maintenance services, search engine optimization services, document conversion, imaging and digital archiving, robotics process outsourcing, then cybersecurity services. You will find a good explanation in your text. It is quoted from the income tax ordinance. So freelancing income is tax exempted. You need to know it very well. Given that you submit your
Tax income returns.
income tax return. Okay. Now, foreign remittance, I already have mentioned in previous session. What is the condition for getting tax exemption of foreign remittance income?
Sir, official channel.
Official থাকতে হবে।
Thanks. It should be remitted through official
Official channel.
channel.
Official.
Okay. So you will find several pages a list to get the tax exempted income. For example, if I like to note, the foreign workers are working in the metro rail project right now in Dhaka city. Foreign workers,
Yes, sir.
their salary and allowances are tax exempted from 14th August 2018 to up to 3 years. Have you got it? And the foreign workers who will be working in the economic zone mentioned in the Bangladesh Economic Zone Act 2010, their income will be tax exempted, foreign workers. Okay. So I will tell you about investment tax allowance in next session. But before that, I just like to mention some items or some expenses or some investment through which you can make you can reduce your tax liability by getting tax rebate. For example, in previous session, so far I can recall, I shared some investment and expenses of me to get the investment tax rebate. Can you recall? I showed you 24D. Let me open it again for you. You see my new document here, Schedule 24D.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think I showed this document to you in previous session. So let me just explain something to you. For investment tax rebate, one thing that is related to contribution to recognized provident fund. Make it clear. Are you seeing my highlighted sentence? Self-contribution and employer's contribution to recognized provident fund. What does it mean? That means for both employee and employer's contribution to recognized provident fund, employee will get what? Tax rebate.
Rebate.
Are you seeing anything for unrecognized provident fund? The answer is no.
No, sir.
Then this is Provident Fund Act 1925. It is applicable for the government provident fund. So if I have included an amount here. So can anyone tell me, I already have mentioned it is general provident fund in my case. So this is solely my contribution. So I have included it here because I will get tax rebate for this. Okay. So let me show you some other item. If I make investment in DPS here, if I make investment in DPS, or if I make investment in, I already have made I have investment in a stock, share, stock, not debenture. I have got, these are my investment amount. Note that these are my either investment amount or the expense amount. These are not my rebate amount. I'm not showing you how much rebate I'm getting here. These are actual amount of investment or contribution I have made. Okay. Then life insurance premium, I had to pay how much here? 10,237. So why I have included this item here? Because it is possible to get the investment tax rebate if I make contribution or if I make investment in this item, which are mentioned here. So from here you will see the total list in the sixth schedule. In the sixth schedule of income tax ordinance, here it is. Sixth schedule, you will see the total list. But for your convenience, you will get the total list from your text. I will try to refer the page 138 to page 140 of the Bangladesh Income Tax Theory and Practice text, page number 138 to 140. You will get a total list of the investment and the contribution for which you will get the tax rebate facility or investment tax rebate facility briefly. And it is very likely that your parents have investment in savings certificate. Is it a true statement? Your
Yes,
parents,
sir. করেছিল।
yeah. So for investment in savings certificate, you also get investment tax rebate. I will show you how to calculate that. So first of all, you need to write the amount here. For example, you have investment in savings certificate. You need to write the how much investment you have made in a particular income year. For a particular assessment year, in a particular income year, how much investment in savings certificate you have made. You have to write that amount here. Okay. So what is your first task? You need to write the amounts which are applicable for you here. For example, I have investment, I have contribution to the benevolent fund, which is maintained by the University of Dhaka for its faculty members. So that's why I have included that amount here. So for calculation purpose, you need to compare three figures. I will show you this calculation in next class. And I will also show you how to calculate the tax rebate for spending money in CSR by the corporate SSC in next session. I think it is a very good time to finish our today's session. Thank you.
Sir,
Let me stop the
Hello, sir.
recording. Let me stop the recording.